Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil. Lots and lots to get into on the show this morning. But before we do that, please do me a small favour. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, bottom right-hand corner. We are just about to hit 41,000 subscribers, so go and do that right now. And be sure to like the video as well. Let's try and see 500 likes on today's episode. On the show this morning, we are going to be reacting to the news that broke late last night, suggesting that Manchester United would be willing to pay as much as £34 million for Lecce's Patrick Dorgu. We'll also be talking about Chelsea, who are now advancing in a deal to sign Alejandro Garnacho, talking about Rashford, all sorts to get into. But before we do that, I want you to answer me this question. How would you feel if Manchester United sold Garnacho to Chelsea? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let's start off the show with this topic because I think this is probably the biggest topic of the show, really. So just to give everyone a bit of a roundup of where we're at, obviously we know that Napoli have been trying to sign Alejandro Garnacho. We know that apparently Garnacho agreed personal terms with Napoli, with them willing to offer him double the wages he's being paid at Manchester United. Now, in all fairness, Garnacho is only on $50,000 a week at United, which to me or you is a lot of money, but in the sense of the rest of the squad balance at Man United, 50 grand a week is one of the lowest earners. You know, you've got people like Christian Eriksen on 150k a week. You've got Casemiro on 350k a week, Rashford on 300k a week, you know? So although £50,000 per week is a lot of money to a normal person, in relation to the rest of the team at Manchester United, it's actually one of the lowest earners. I mean, even Højlund's on about 100k a week, which kind of, you know, if I was Garnacho, I'd be saying I should be earning at least 100k a week. But anyway, Napoli reportedly offered him 100 grand a week and he's accepted that. But the big issue is that Napoli aren't willing to pay the amount of money Man United want, which is apparently about £60 million, 70 million euros, which is the same amount of money they sold Kvaratskhelia Kvaratskhelia to PSG for. So you can see where Man United are getting this kind of figure from. Obviously, Garnacho's a couple of years younger than Kvaratskhelia. His goal and assists are about the same as him. He's already a seasoned international, obviously won the Copa America, didn't he, with Argentina. So I can understand why Man United is saying, you know, he's Premier League proven. We think he's worth £60 million. We don't want to sell him. Either you give us the money or do one. Now, apparently Napoli are saying no, they're offering stupid money. They're offering like 50 million euros, which is £40 million. Now, come on, that's just dumb. But that's the bit on Napoli. Now, to talk a little bit about Chelsea, this sent the internet into absolute meltdown last night. So Fabrizio Romano came out last night saying that Chelsea have now had fresh contacts with Manchester United today, so this was last night, for Alejandro Garnacho. He is their top target. And then after this tweet went out, Garnacho's agent posted a picture of him at the Chelsea game last night at Stamford Bridge. He put it up on his Instagram story. So Garnacho's agent was at Stamford Bridge last night and reportedly, according to Fabrizio Romano, met with Chelsea yesterday to discuss a deal to Chelsea. And apparently the story also suggests that Garnacho would rather move to Chelsea than he would move to Napoli. How does everyone feel about that? Now, I'm going to try and look at it from both sides of the coin, okay? I'm going to try and give a fair, balanced opinion here. If you sell him to Chelsea, you will get £60 million, okay? You will, because Chelsea have a lot more money than Napoli. You're selling him to a Premier League rival. If 60 million is the price, they either pay it or they don't get him. It's as simple as that, right? Whereas with Napoli, I think, you know, teams in Italy always think there's a little bit more wriggle room. They don't have as big a budgets. Obviously, the TV money in Italy isn't as much. But, I mean, all you have to do is just look at the Mason Mount deal. We paid Chelsea 64 million euros 2 summers ago for Mason Mount. 64 million euros, which works out to be about 55 million pounds. I would be asking for 60 million minimum for Garnacho, probably more. If they think that Mason Mount is worth 55 million, then we should be saying we want 60 million plus 20 million in add-ons. I would be saying, you know, you're taking a player from a direct rival in the same league. They've got to be having a laugh if they think that he's worth anything less than 60 million plus maybe 20 or 30 in add-ons. Now, how do I feel about this? I think him going to Napoli felt a little bit more palatable, a little bit more acceptable. and I could understand it. You know, McTominay's gone to Napoli. He's doing really well. No hard feelings. Fair play to him. But if he goes to Chelsea, we're just going to be reminded of him every single game. Now, he might go to Chelsea and he might not do very well. That's obviously a possibility. Okay? Just because you move to Chelsea doesn't mean that he's suddenly going to start performing. He might go there and he might struggle and they might end up loaning him like they do with many of the players they've signed over the years. You know, if you look at Chelsea's spending over the last 2 or 3 years, they've spent about £1 billion and probably only, I don't know, less than 5 of the players they've signed have probably been a success, being fair. You know, like when you look at some of the biggest signings they've made, they bought Joao Felix in the summer for €50 million and he just doesn't even play. They signed... Pedro Neto's been okay. They spent 60 million on Pedro Neto. I mean, if Pedro Neto's worth 60 million euros, then Garnacho's probably worth 70, 80, realistically. Would you agree? You know, if you look at some of their deals from the summer, they spent a hell of a lot of money. They spent over 250 million euros, and I'd say that only... I mean, I don't think any of the players they bought in the summer have been a success. Maybe Pedro Neto. But other than that, I mean, Joao Felix doesn't play. And then you look at the summer before that and you look at some of the spending they did then, right? This is just a good way of comparing Chelsea's budget. They spent over 116 million euros on Moises Caicedo. He's not really worked. I mean, he has worked, to be fair. I think the first season, Moises Caicedo was a little bit disappointing, but he has got a lot better. Christopher Nkunku, they spent 60 million euros on. That's not worked. Obviously, Cole Palmer's been a phenomenal signing. But the point I'm making here is, I think we can easily push for, I would say, £60 million plus add-ons, you know? Minimum, absolutely minimum. Whereas if you're selling to Napoli, I think it's maybe a little bit of a different story. But selling him to a direct Premier League rival, I think it's going to upset a lot of people. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this story progresses because obviously, whether you like it or not, Garnacho's clearly pushing for a move. The fact that his agent flew to Naples last week to meet with the director of football of Napoli and his agent was in London yesterday at Stamford Bridge, meeting Chelsea, trying to agree personal terms. Whatever you think about Manchester United, Garnacho's clearly trying to push for a move here. But at the same time, can you blame him? We're sat 13th in the Premier League. He doesn't get picked under Ruben Amorim. He doesn't suit the system. Ruben Amorim clearly doesn't see him in his plans. So can you really blame him? And I think there's this whole obsession in some parts of the fan base where they're like, oh, it's a disgrace if we sell Garnacho. And it's like, well, I understand the principle of why it's a disgrace. We shouldn't be selling our youth players. I get that. But you've got a youth player who is not being picked by the manager. Okay, that's the manager's decision to not pick him. You've got a youth player who only really would suit this system as a wing back and he can't defend. Okay. And at the same time, you've got a desperate need to bring in funds to buy new players. And he provides an opportunity to do that. You know, whereas Kobbie Mainoo, that would be obviously devastating. Kobbie Mainoo plays every single game. You can see which position he would suit the system, etc. But with Garnacho at the moment, ever since Ruben Amorim's joined, if you have a look at the minutes that he's played since Ruben Amorim's joined, it's like 20 minutes a game. He comes off the bench when we're losing already for 20 minutes. I think he's only started one game since Ruben Amorim came in 15 games. And he's not been injured. He's been available. Like, that kind of just says it all for me. I don't blame Garnacho for looking elsewhere. You're in the bottom half of the Premier League. You're not going to be in Champions League football probably for another 2 or 3 years. And even then, you're not getting picked by the manager. So I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I would be disappointed if he went to Chelsea. But at the same time, I think him going to Chelsea is a relatively bad decision for his career personally. And in some ways, if he went to like Arsenal, I'd be worried because I think he'd go to Arsenal and do really well, and we'd regret it in the future. But I can see him going to Chelsea, and they've got so many players in so many of those similar positions. You know, if you look at their attacking players, Chelsea, like they're absolutely spoiled. I mean, they have Jadon Sancho who plays in the same position, who's another one of our players who they're buying in the summer. They've got Pedro Neto. They've got Madueke. They've got, you know, the amount of attacking options that Chelsea have is literally ridiculous. And I think if he goes there, fair play to him, but I don't think it's a particularly good move for his career. But obviously that's up to him. You know, if you look at the options they've got Madueke, they've got Joao Felix, who's probably going to leave realistically. They've got, I guess the big thing is obviously Mudrik's been banned, hasn't he? Or potentially been banned from football for potential doping charges. So maybe they're looking at this situation and thinking, we need to bring in a replacement for Mudryk. And I guess Garnacho is a massive upgrade on Mudryk. So it does kind of make sense. And maybe he would get game time. But I still just look at the situation with him and I think I'm a little bit concerned that he'll go there and won't play. But I guess at the end of the day, that's not our problem anymore, is it? You know, if he decides to leave the club, which I don't blame him if he does, to be honest. If he decides to leave the club and he goes to Chelsea and he doesn't play, then, I mean, it's not really our problem, is it? To be honest. So, but yeah, I'd love to know what you guys all think about this situation. How would you feel if Manchester United sold Garnacho to Chelsea? Like, would you be upset about it? Let me know what you think. Obviously, please consider everything I've just said. Consider the fact that Ruben Amorim clearly doesn't think he suits the system. Ruben Amorim doesn't pick him. He brings him on for 10 minutes, 20 minutes at the end of a match when we're losing. Like, he's not a starting player for Ruben Amorim. That's a fact. You know, it's not like Kobbie Mainoo, who does play most games. It's not like Ugarte, who plays most games. It's a player who at the moment is a bench player. A good bench player, but would you rather have £60 million in the bank? I'm just having a look at Chelsea's team quickly. So I guess, yeah, I mean, at the moment, they've got Madueke and Neto as their starting wingers. I guess Garnacho would get in the team ahead of Madueke, definitely, wouldn't he? I think Neto probably maybe on par with Garnacho, maybe. But yeah, I think Garnacho's definitely better than Madueke. And then they've got, obviously, Sancho on the bench. So I can see why they need to sign him. But yeah, I would love to see what you guys have to say about that. Just a quick one. We've got 500 people watching the show live now. If you could all do me a little favour and like the video. The more people that like the video, the more that YouTube will show this to other people. So I would really, really appreciate it. We are trying to hit 500 likes on this show. And make sure to subscribe as well. I've just dropped a link into the chat to do that. Bottom right-hand corner. Get involved. I'm live every day. It's free content. The way you can say thank you is by liking and subscribing. And I hope you feel okay doing that. But anyway, I will have a little look through the comment section in a bit. So get your comments in and let me know about Garnacho to Chelsea. How do you feel about that? Okay, let's move on from that though, and let's jump on over to Patrick Dorgu. So this is coming out from Fabrizio Romano this morning. He's reporting that Manchester United are willing to go big for Patrick Dorgu. He says that Lecce want around 29 to 34 million pounds, including add-ons. He says Napoli are also interested. United will be in Italy in the next few hours. So apparently there's a meeting taking place this morning between the Manchester United board. So whether that will be Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, who knows? We don't know the specific person who's flown out there for this meeting. But yeah, they'll be meeting with the director of football of Lecce and trying to agree a deal for Patrick Dorgu. Now, since we last spoke yesterday, quite a few teams have conveniently entered the race to sign him. Now, this happens every single time we're linked to a player. We get all excited. You know, we think, all right, this guy looks like the real deal. He's talented. He'd be perfect. And it looks like a deal can happen quickly. And then next thing you know, you have journalists briefing that Napoli want to sign him. Apparently AC Milan want to sign him now. Apparently Juventus want to sign him now. And for me, all this is interestingly enough, these stories of other clubs entering the race are coming out from mainly Italian journalists. Fabrizio's obviously mentioned Napoli, but Damasio's mentioned Juventus, AC Milan, others. And effectively what's happening here, in my opinion, is the agent of Patrick Dorgu and Lecce themselves have probably briefed certain Italian journalists, you know, to put out stories to try and drive up the price. This happens every single time. It's all part of the transfer process. You know, they'll say, Napoli are willing to buy him now for 40 million. Juventus are willing to buy him in the summer for 50 million. Like, it's all just a game of who blinks first. It's a game of cat and mouse. And Man United need to be very, very careful here, because this has happened to us before, where, like with Leicester City and Harry Maguire, you know, Manchester City entered the race for Maguire and we give Leicester 80 million and give him a 200 grand a week contract, which Man City weren't willing to match. Now, I don't think with Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, etc., that they'll make those same mistakes, because I think so far we haven't really overpaid for any transfers since Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada have been here. I think generally the players we signed in the summer were all good deals. Ugarte was a good signing. I think De Ligt was a good signing. I think Mazraoui was a decent signing. Who else did we sign? I'm trying to think. We signed some other people as well. Xerxes, I think, you know, Xerxes receives a lot of criticism, but for the price we got for him, I think he's a decent player. He's a decent squad player, and he still has a lot of, you know, time ahead of him. So I think generally the fees that we paid in the summer were all perfectly reasonable. I know the mainstream media are always going to say, oh, you paid 40 million for De Ligt, he's a flop, whatever. I mean, it's just complete rubbish. De Ligt is not a flop. He's a decent player. Is he world class? I don't think so, but he's definitely a very good player. So yeah, I'm relatively confident that Man United will get a deal done here for Patrick Dorgu. But what I will say is this: I think the fact that Man United are really advancing in this deal tells me that a big name player like Garnacho will be leaving, because we are told constantly that we need to sell to buy, right? And where is the money going to come from to pay £34 million for Patrick Dorgu? I mean, the only simple option is from the sale of Garnacho. Realistically, they sell Garnacho for 60 million to Chelsea, and then they go and get Patrick Dorgu, and they can probably sign someone else as well, maybe an attacking player, to go alongside him. But I'm feeling quite confident about this deal. I'm not too worried about these other Italian teams. Apparently, Patrick Dorgu has said yes to Manchester United, which I don't think is that unbelievable, really. At the end of the day, Man United are 13th in the Premier League, but Patrick Dorgu is currently playing in the Serie A, and he currently earns £10,000 per week, which, again, to me or you, is a lot of money. But when you look at what Manchester United would be willing to pay him, he's currently playing for a team who are 17th in Serie A, earning £10,000 a week. And he has the opportunity to go to Manchester United, which is the biggest club in the world, realistically, from a fan base perspective. Obviously, at the moment, we're not very good on the pitch, but from a brand's perspective, you go to Manchester United and your life is changed forever, realistically. You see a player join Manchester United. Let's have a look. So Patrick Dorgu's probably... Let's have a look. So at the moment, Patrick Dorgu's Instagram, he's got 25,000 followers, which is nothing. He'll join Manchester United, and within 24 hours, he'll probably be on 500,000 followers on Instagram. And people are like, why do you talk about stuff like this? I don't care about that. The point I'm making here is joining Manchester United opens up loads and loads of opportunities for people. Now, whether or not they succeed on the pitch is kind of irrelevant, to be honest. Obviously, as Manchester United fans, our main priority is bringing in players who succeed and do well and perform. That's what we want them for, isn't it? But from a player's perspective, as I said, he's got 25,000 followers on Instagram. He'll join Manchester United. He'll probably be on like 500,000 subscribers in 24 hours, and that would then open the door to brand deals, sponsorships. It effectively just means more money, and it increases his own brand, which I know a lot of people don't like to talk about, but that is how football works these days. So, I can see why he wants to come to Manchester United. I think the fact that we're not doing well at the moment is kind of irrelevant, because he plays for a team who are in a lesser league and they're on the brink of being relegated. So it's not really, it's still a massive step up, isn't it? And obviously the fact that Manchester United will obviously pay him a lot more money as well. I can see some people in the chat saying, what about Ayanori from Wolves? I think the problem with Ayanori, is it Ayanori? I like Ayanori, but I just think the amount of money it would cost to get him from Wolves would be absolutely astronomical. It's unrealistic. It's probably going to be, £50 million, maybe more. It's just not realistic. Whereas, this Patrick Dorgu from Lecce deal is a great opportunity. I don't think we'll pay £34 million, by the way, for him. That's what Lecce are asking for. But at the moment, they're in a relegation battle. They need to sell players. They need to bring in funds. So, I imagine Man United will probably play somewhere between 20 and 30 million for Patrick Dorgu. That would be my guess, pounds. So, yeah. In relation to Rayan Ayanori, I don't think so, to be honest. I just think that he's going to cost way too much money. But you obviously can let me know your thoughts on that one below. Al says Dorgu was purchased by Lecce for only £200,000. Why is he suddenly worth £34 million? Well, he's suddenly worth £34 million because he has been one of the standout players in the Serie A. He was the Danish player of the season last year. And as well, he's worth £34 million because effectively Man United want him and Lecce have named their price. He's not worth £34 million. Of course he's not. I mean, Transfer Market values him at 20 million euros, which is what, 15 million pounds maybe? Let's have a look. He's probably worth half of what Lecce are asking for, if I'm being completely honest. Like, that's his actual market value. Let's have a look. Yeah, so Transfer Market has him valued at 17 million pounds. Literally half of what Lecce are asking for, which is £34 million. So you are right, he's not worth £34 million, not a hope in hell. But the problem that we have is Lecce hold all the cards. I think he's on a long-term contract at Lecce. I think he's got, let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, he's got 4 years left on his contract. He signed a new deal literally 2 months ago. So effectively, either we pay what they're asking for, or they'll probably hold on to him, or they'll sell him to an Italian club. Because, you know, the Italian clubs aren't going to pay £34 million. Not a hope in hell. If he goes to Juventus or to Napoli, they'll probably pay, I would be shocked if they paid more than £20 million. But again, as soon as Manchester United's name enters the mix, the price goes from here to up here. And that's just how it works. And it's annoying, but they see Manchester United and they see the dollar signs. The same with the agent. If he goes to Napoli, he'll probably earn 30,000 a week, pounds. If he comes to Manchester United, his agent will be asking for 50, 60. It's just how it works. And I don't really know how we get around it. At the end of the day, we have more money than all of these other clubs. The yearly financial accounts are made public. So every single team in world football will see how much money Manchester United makes or how much money it generates. And that's how they make their price up, which is annoying, but that's just how it is. So, yeah. I mean, the alternative is that you don't buy anybody and you just bring people through the youth academy. That's the alternative, you know, which maybe we do. Lots of people in the chat saying, what about Milos Kerkez? Milos Kerkez is the same as Aitonori. He's going to cost you 50, 60 million. It's just not realistic. You know, it's just not realistic. I'm sorry. As much as I would like to see Milos Kerkez, as much as I would like to see Aitonori, he's probably going to cost you, 50 million, I would say. Stefan says, Kieran, do you think Dorgu for 20 million is better value than Alvaro Fernandez for 16 million? That's a good question. I don't know is the honest answer, to be honest. I don't know. I think both of them are a gamble. That's the honest answer. You know? I think Patrick Dorgu is a name we've been linked to for a while. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would say that it's 50-50. It's impossible to give a definitive answer on whether, you know, signing Alvaro Fernandez is better than signing Patrick Dorgu. I personally would probably say go with Patrick Dorgu. I think he is a little bit more experienced. But it's close, you know. If you think that Alvaro Fernandez has only really started playing first team football this season for Benfica, obviously he was at Man United last season in the youth academy, whereas Patrick Dorgu joined Lecce in 2023, so he had a whole season last year. So he's a little bit further ahead in his development, if that makes sense. He's had a whole season last year and he's been playing every minute for them this season, whereas, as I said, Alvaro Fernandez, this year is his kind of breakout season, isn't it? So he is a little bit less experienced. And remember, he did only leave Manchester United like 5-6 months ago, you know? So, yeah. Like, obviously, he's played a lot of football this season, Alvaro Fernandez. But last season, he was on loan somewhere, wasn't he? He was in La Liga, I think. He didn't play that much football last season. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's an easy answer to that question. I think both of them are gambles. Neither of them are the finished article. Either of them could join and not work out. So I think I would personally go with Patrick Dorgu. Maybe you bring Alvaro Fernandez back in the future because we will need a couple of players in that position, won't we? And I think maybe the sensible option would be to leave Alvaro Fernandez at Benfica until the summer and then reevaluate the options, you know, see how they're getting on. But yeah, right, let's move on from that and let's jump on over to Marcus Rashford. There's a little bit of breaking news here on Matheus Cunha from Wolves. Apparently, Fabrizio's saying that Cunha's situation at Wolves remains one to watch in January. He says that the new deal with Wolves hasn't actually been signed yet, and there are now clubs showing interest, including Arsenal. Okay. I mean, that's the obvious option then, isn't it? So if you could sell Garnacho to Chelsea, go and sign Matheus Cunha from Wolves, and I think 99% of the fan base would be happy with that. Would you not? If we could get Matheus Cunha, and in exchange we let Garnacho go to Chelsea, they're probably going to be about the same price, aren't we? Now, what could happen here is Chelsea could just go and buy Matheus Cunha. That's probably the most likely option. But yeah, I mean, Matheus Cunha's had a phenomenal season. He's got 14 goals and assists in 21 games so far this season, which is absolutely incredible. And, you know, obviously he can play as a central forward, a left wing and a right winger. So he is very, very versatile. Brazilian international. Obviously the fee for him would have to be big though, because he did only join Wolves, I think it was in 2023 for 50 million euros. So it's not going to be a cheap deal to do, but if you did say you get 60 million pounds for Garnacho or 70 million euros, you could easily then go and give Wolves, say, 60 million for Matheus Cunha. And I think most of the fan base would be happy with that. But yeah, so I'm not sure if Matheus Cunha is world class, but I do think he is good. I do like him. He's better than what we've got at the moment anyway. You know, but arguably he is 25 and Garnacho, I think, is what, 21? Is that right? Let me check. Garnacho's only 20. That's the question that you have to ask yourself. In 5 years' time, will Garnacho be levels above Matheus Cunha? Because remember, Matheus Cunha is 5 years older than Garnacho, and I don't know the answer to that question. That's the honest answer there. Because I mean, even though Garnacho's not been playing that much, his record for this season isn't terrible. He's got 13 goals and assists in 32 games, so he's averaging a goal or an assist nearly every other game. Which is, it's not bad, is it? Not bad at all. But yeah, we'll keep you updated on that one. Let's jump on over to Chelsea then really quick. Not Chelsea, Rashford. So in relation to Rashford, it doesn't look like he's going to go to AC Milan. Hardly surprising. But yeah, I'm just seeing there's another bit of breaking news here about Garnacho, that apparently Chelsea are willing to bid £60.5 million for Garnacho. It says both Chelsea and Napoli are moving very fast and a deal could be completed by the end of this week. So Garnacho to Chelsea looks like it could happen. But yeah, back to Rashford. The story that got briefed last night to the media is that apparently Rashford is now happy to stay at Manchester United. I mean, it's absolutely laughable. I'm sorry. He's happy to stay because nobody wants him. His agent was shopping around Europe trying to find him a new club and nobody even wants to take him on loan. And now suddenly the media has been briefed yesterday. Every single journalist in the media, whether it's the BBC, whether it's The Athletic, whether it's Fabrizio Romano, whoever, received the same story saying that Marcus Rashford wants to stay and fight for his place at Manchester United. I mean, it's absolutely laughable. A month ago, Marcus Rashford does an interview with Henry Winter saying that he's ready for a new challenge and that he wants to leave. His agent puts him in the shop window. You have 1 week. Barcelona want him. Arsenal want him. PSG want him. Blah, blah, blah. All these clubs want him, right? Supposedly. Fast forward 2 weeks and AC Milan don't want him. Barcelona don't want him. Arsenal probably never wanted him. West Ham can't afford him. Whatever, right? The only club that are left are Dortmund. And apparently Dortmund aren't even willing to pay half of his wages either. Man United would have to pay more than half of his wages to send him to Dortmund. And even then, the story goes on to say that apparently Dortmund aren't even sure about bringing him, even if they have to pay less than half of his wages. Because less than half of his wages is still about £10 million, I read, which is mental. You know, because obviously there's all these fees as well. There's agent fees. There's, you know, it's not just as simple as paying half of his wages. And they also have said, Dortmund, that apparently, obviously he plays in the same position as that Jamie Gittins guy who's absolutely tearing it up for them. So they're a bit like, why would we pay out all this money to bring someone in on loan who hasn't played football for over 5 weeks, I think it is now, when we've already got somebody who they think is better in the same position in Jamie Gittins. You know, if they bring in Rashford, he's not their player. His value's not going to go up, and that's not going to help Dortmund, is it? It's going to help us. Whereas Jamie Gittins is 20 years of age. He's valued at around 50 million already, and he plays every single week in the same position as Marcus Rashford does. So, yeah, it's an absolute mess, really, for Rashford. An absolute mess, but are we really surprised that this has happened? Not really. He's probably going to end up back at Manchester United. And the one thing I want to say is this, right? And this is the bit that scares me the most. If we see Garnacho back in the team, I think that just means that Ruben Amorim doesn't have the authority that he thought he had. because Ruben Amorim's made it very, very clear that Marcus Rashford is not part of his plans and that he doesn't want him in the team, okay? And if we now get him back in the team, what does that say about the structure at Manchester United? What does that say about how much power he really has? I think it would be a concern. But hopefully in the final days of the window, hopefully this is all just a negotiation tactic, and hopefully, Man United can get something done here, because it is just frustrating. But anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you very much for watching the show today. Please do me a small favor before you leave. Drop a like before you go. Let's try and see 500 likes on this episode, and make sure to subscribe. If anything breaks later on today with Garnacho, obviously I will go live, so make sure you have that notification bell on. Have a great day, everybody. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye for now.